Hi guys, and welcome. In this next clip, I'm having a chat with a lady by the name of Mrs. Danielle Loxton. Now, Dani Loxton is she's a mum of five, and she's a busy lady. She runs yoga teaching, I think we call it. She also runs a massive online health and wellness business. This was a great interview. We discovered lots of things about what's it like to be a busy mum and then having multiple businesses at the same time. Oh, sorry, she's also a photographer. You know, she really has a lot on her plate. So that's the very nature of our discussion. How do you juggle so many things on your plate? One of the things I discovered in my conversation with her is that the more she takes on, the less busier she seems to become as she's growing her skills, her mindset. She changes her attitude towards business. I've known Dani Loxton for about 6 years now, and I've really seen her go through some massive personal growth, and you will feel some of that in this particular chat and this interview. So, I really think you can get a lot of information out of having a look at this. For those of you that haven't met Dani Loxton before and you want to, please get back to the person who invited you here to find out more about what Mrs. Loxton is doing and what she's doing to really break free and out of the norm and live a lifestyle that most people dream of. So enjoy the interview, guys. Have a good one. Morning, Dani. How are you?
Hello. Good, thank you. And yourself?
Good to see you. It's been a while.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not allowed to go anywhere.
That's right. It's been it's been a crazy year.
It certainly has. Look, thanks for jumping on this call and agreeing to have a little bit of a chat with us on our channel. As you know, we like to talk to successful people about life, about business, about family, kids, anything that really pops up in this that might be of value to somebody. That's what's in this channel. So I wanted to get stuck into talking about a little bit about your background. Do you want to just give us a brief background about who's Dani Loxton?
So I'm married, mother of five, living on the border of the Gold Coast in New South Wales in Australia. Originally from Adelaide, moved up here 5 years ago, and running a business online. So that's what I do, and I'm a yoga teacher. So just keeping myself busy. All the kids are at school or finished school now. So I've got a little bit of free time through my day to focus on other things finally.
Okay, cool. Now you never used to be, so diverse in what you're doing and running online businesses and multiple business, but you've always been busy with, 5 kids. Come on, that's a full-time job in itself.
Sure is.
Back up, 5 or 10 years ago, your lifestyle was vastly different to what it is now.
Yes. So prior to running an online business, I was a photographer and I ran my own photography studio. And prior to that, I worked in finance and I was a flight attendant. So I've got a bit of a diverse background in my career. Started off working in a bank and went into working for financial planners and working my way up in that field, and then changed completely, became a flight attendant, which I absolutely loved. But getting to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning and having small children, it wasn't always possible. So I had to make a change once my third son came along and he was a newborn. I was like, I can't go back to that kind of work. So that's how the photography studio was born. So I did photography. I was an assistant photographer straight out of school. So I used those skills to start my photography business and did that for 7 years. And as much as I loved it, I'm a creative person. So I do love being able to create photos and give them to people. So I love that side of it, but it didn't give me the flexibility and the freedom that I thought that it would when I first started it. I thought, I'd be able to work on my own terms, but it turned out I was working when babies were born and when people were getting married, and that was coinciding a lot with school holidays and weekends. I worked a lot on the weekends, and so I started to get into training other photographers and teaching them the art of newborn photography and how to run a photography business, and started doing that. And yeah, then realized once I started working in the online world that there was another way that I could be a little bit more flexible and actually get to choose my hours. So
Yeah, makes sense. So
yeah.
did you photography to, I mean, I started a photography business. It's not something I would do because I couldn't. I just don't have the talent. Did you know you have that talent, or did you develop it as you went along? Is that back from the school days you realized?
Yeah, so I was a model when I was younger, and so I became friends with a lot of different photographers, and started working in a photography studio as an assistant photographer. So I picked up a lot of skills from that. So I knew my way around a camera. I shot my first wedding in the year 2000. So that was the old SLR camera. So that was, before we had the digital cameras, and shooting on film. And so when I did start doing my photography studio, I had to learn the digital side of it. That was all new to me. So that was a skill I had to learn, the processing side of things, and finding my way around a digital camera, which was very different to an SLR. So I did have to refresh myself, but just from posting pictures of my own children, I had a lot of friends asking me to take pictures of their children, and that's kind of how it all came about. People kept asking me, and I thought, well, I should start charging. so yeah, it kind of just evolved.
Okay, I remember when the first time 6 years ago somebody introduced me to you. I think it was in Adelaide. I was like, oh, who's this Dani? She, oh, she's a photographer. She shoots babies. I'm like, that sounds dreadful.
I hate saying that, but it's no other way to say it sometimes.
Unreal. So, so you then turned a hobby into a business, and you had the learning that a lot of business people do. Once you turn a hobby into a business, it's not so much of a hobby anymore. You find yourself getting very busy. You get weighed down with all sorts of other stuff that you didn't think you would be doing. That was pretty well your journey as well. And you eventually got up to here with time.
Yeah, that's right. I was also someone who didn't like to let other people do my work. Like I wanted to do it all myself. So I was doing all my own book work. I was doing all the processing. I was doing all the marketing. I did everything myself. And I got to a stage where I felt like I just couldn't do it on my own anymore because it was taking so much time. We ended up employing a nanny to live in our home to look after our children because I was getting so busy with work. And when I should have been outsourcing my work and spending more time with my children. So I got it back to front, and I eventually learned that I needed to outsource my processing. So I did that. I found a company that, I felt like by doing that, I was giving away the part that was me in the business, my own creative flair, but I was giving them my recipe and they would just process it for me. So it was still me, and I just had to let go of that. It was just a mental thing for myself. So once I let go of that, then I was able to have a little bit more time, a little bit more freedom in what I was doing in other parts of my business. But there was a lot that I still did myself. I did have contractors that worked for me. Like I had other people that came to weddings and shot with me. I had assistants that worked with me in studio with the newborns. So I did have other people working for me, but I very much wanted it to be myself.
It's funny because I interviewed just last week Mike Simon, another entrepreneur, and we had exactly the same conversation. He used a different word though. It was control freak. You didn't quite go that far,
Yeah.
but I'll put it in there just for
Yeah.
good measure. And I think it's very common because you get attached to what you do. You have a lot of pride in your work, and you just want to make sure it's done right. And you don't realize that by you doing everything, it is no longer done right because you can't spread yourself that thin. You would be better off farming some of it out. So where did you start with the farming out? How did you figure out which bits was to go first?
Well, I started off with the post-processing. So I found a company that could do that side of it for me. So as soon as I finished a wedding, I could be getting home from a wedding at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd get home and I would quickly download all of my images off of all of my cards, and then I would shoot them off to the other company for the processing. So then that was done. I didn't have to do any more for the wedding until the images came back. And then I could put together the albums, and then I could show them their images, and we can go through what they wanted to do with their albums. So that was all good. With the baby stuff, I still process those ones myself, and that was a lot. You know, with a wedding there's a lot more photos, but with a newborn there's a lot more work in the photos. So yeah, that took a lot of time, and I just couldn't let go of that. That was something that I needed to let go, that I just couldn't. And then from there I then started getting some help with the book work, and my husband at the time was working in digital marketing, so I got him to help me with the marketing. So yeah, there was a few things that I was able to get a little bit of help with, but I was still, you know, controlling most of it.
That's it. So I guess the difference between, you know, doing baby shoots and weddings is, with the weddings you get free cake. Out of all the things you did, what was your favorite type of do you call them a gig or job?
Yeah, my favorite job, I don't know, I love what I'm doing now. I really do, because of the flexibility with it. But I also love being a flight attendant, and just getting out and seeing different places and things like that as well was really good. That was fun. Yeah, that was a really good job. But yeah, I don't know. I think now I like the flexibility that I have more so than work, if that makes sense.
It's an interesting, and I will get into the lifestyle question in a second, but it seems to me, in everything that you're mentioning, that you've enjoyed doing. It looks like you've enjoyed most of what you've done, at least 80% of it. There's always bits of your career that you don't like. Always a penalty to be paid. I can't even speak anymore.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
How far will you go and say, well, I'm prepared to pay this price to do this job? How far will you take that? Where do you say, stop, I won't pay that price?
Well, I think it kind of got to that with me with the photography studio, where I was kind of burning the candle at both ends, and trying to be a good mum at the same time. And I was missing friends' weddings, and I was missing, you know, catch-ups with friends and family and things like that all the time, because I was always booked for weddings. I was always working, and I was booked out for weddings 1-2 years in advance. So, you know, once they were set in, there was nothing I could do about it. I couldn't move it. And then also trying to stay healthy at the same time to make sure that I could be there. And also I would shoot birth as well. So when someone's giving birth, I'd be racing off to the hospital, and, you know, that could be 2 o'clock in the morning at any time. So I had to be available all the time, around the clock, and that's 2 weeks either side of the deadline, you know, the due date of the baby. So it did cut out a lot of my fun, you know, my life. You know, there was certain things I would miss at school for the kids because I'd be tied up at a birth or shooting a newborn baby, or you know, all that sort of thing. So there was a lot of things that I did miss out on, and I didn't really click, and I wasn't really made aware of it so much until I got out of it, if that makes sense. Once I was out and I was doing something new where I had the flexibility to do those things, it made me realize then what I had been missing for all those years.
What you said, I didn't even know you did the birth photography. It sends off triggers in my head about all sorts of unattractive things, but I'm sure there's a classy way of doing that, and way not to do it. And then in the middle of you being super busy and everything happening, your photography is up to here in terms of time. Your family is still growing. Of course, you got a marriage and husband to you know, take care of each other as well, and nurture that. And then you decide to start another business right in the middle of all that. Yeah. What were you thinking?
Like, yeah, my youngest baby, my 5th baby, I was still breastfeeding her. She was about 8 months old when I started the online business, and my husband thought I was crazy. But I don't know, there was just something inside telling me that I just needed to give it a go and just see what it was all about, and just, you know, give it 100% and see what happens. And so I took it on, and I was glad that I did, because it did open my eyes a lot to the way that my family were living. My husband and I would pass each other in the doorway, almost like he was looking after the kids until I got back, and then I get back and I'm trying to edit photos and do things on the computer while I'm also trying to cook dinner and bath kids and getting things happening around the house. So it was like lots of juggling and trying to keep things going. And so yeah, when I did say I wanted to start another business, my husband thought I was crazy.
I'll tell you what, if I'd known your story back then, I would have thought you were crazy too. And maybe we are all a little bit crazy, but isn't that the path of somebody who's got entrepreneurial spirit and all that? You go and do things that other people otherwise wouldn't do. But having done that, having stepped into something new, whilst your plate is already full, you didn't have a flying start either. So at that point, you must have questioned yourself in one way or another. Have I done the right thing? Is this out of my area of expertise? Am I out of my depth here? Have I done the wrong thing? What was going off? Because you didn't have a great start. The first couple of months the results were fairly mundane, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And that would have set off some doubts in your head.
Well, I'm fortunate my husband is supportive regardless. He was kind of like, you can do whatever, but don't ask me for help. That was he was too busy already with what he was doing. So he was just letting me know he didn't have the time to help me if I got stuck. So I was like, no worries. And it was a little bit harder than I expected in the beginning. But I could see that other people were being successful with it. And so I knew it was possible. And so I used that as my motivator. I was like, well, if they can do it, I've just got to learn how. I've just got to learn what it is that I'm doing wrong. And so I just went back to my mentors and just said to them, can you have a look at what I'm doing and just see where I'm going wrong and give me some pointers? And they were able to do that for me, which was really good. And after that, once I identified, what I was actually doing wrong or what I can improve on, and making those changes, it really started to take off for me.
It sure did. And I think you set all the records in your industry. And as I recall it, you surpassed your mentors.
Yes.
In terms of achievement, which is amazing. It's an astounding result. What did that do to you? Now you've gone from struggling to, I don't know what to do. Am I doing the right thing? Self-doubt, question, whatever else happens. And I don't want to get into the whole psychology of it, but we all go through that. Now you're on the other side of it. How did that impact you? What was your story about yourself in your head at that point?
Once it all started to take off, it was just excitement. I was like, yes, it works. Like, I was proving it to myself. I was proving it to others. And it was around that time that my husband then looked at it and went, hang on a minute, if you've been able to do this by yourself, imagine what we could do together. And so then he started helping me with it as well. And working together on it was, it was a lot of fun because, we both have that same interest and we're both focused on that. And I was able to then give away the photography business and just focus solely on my online business. And I think that the best part was the results that other people were getting as well. It wasn't just about me. It was the fact that I was helping people in the process and helping other people to get results, helping other people to feel good with products, being nutrition. It was all the warm fuzzies because, seeing so many other people having great results as well just reinforced why I was doing what I was doing.
Awesome. Through that journey, we have our internal voices, doubts, questions, celebrations, what are the ups and downs. What about externally? I'm sure Mick obviously was a fantastic support to you, but I'm sure there was people around that really thought you were crazy. And once you weren't traveling so well in the beginning, really had a great deal of joy watching that. How did you deal with all that external noise, if I can call it that?
There was a lot of people, not a lot. There were some people who were a little bit negative towards what we were doing and, saying things behind our backs about, I can't believe they're doing that, or, she's wasted her money, like growing this business and all this sort of stuff. They just didn't see what I saw in it. They didn't have the belief that I had in this. And when I heard those things, I used it again as a motivation, because I was like, well, I'll just prove them wrong. I'll just prove to them that it's not what they think it is, and it is what I know it is. And so it just made me work even harder. And eventually those people were knocking on my door going, what are you doing? I want to know what you're doing. So those people became believers.
That's really the greatest victory, isn't it? Don't get even, just win. For those that might be watching right now that feel that it's challenging to deal with the naysayers or the haters or the negative influences around, what would you say to them? I mean, do you go and tear them a new one? Do you argue with them? Do you try to convince them, or do you just ignore? What would you advise somebody that might not be as resilient as you, that can just brush it off? It sounds like you deal with that in a positive way, but most people are not necessarily wired like that.
Yeah, it can be. It can be really hurtful when someone's passionate about something. They feel like they're doing the right thing, and then someone's bringing them down. It can put that doubt in. But the only reason why you wouldn't succeed in it is because you're listening to them. Like, if you really believe in what you're doing and you really want to make it something, then you've just got to prove to them that it is what you believe it is. And by listening to them and allowing them to get into your head, you're not going to prove that to them. So it's just being respectful of their opinion. Yeah, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And if that's how they feel about it, that's fine. They don't have to do it. But I just say, I understand that you don't see what I see in this, but, I would just appreciate if you would support me. And by supporting me, I mean just, watching and just, not being negative about it. There are other ways that people can support as well, like sharing posts that you share about whatever it is that you're doing, your business and that kind of thing. They can share that. If they're not willing to do that, then they can just sit by and keep their opinions to themselves. So that's all I would advise, is say that's okay, you're entitled to your opinion, but just if you keep that opinion to yourself and allow me to experience my own journey, I'd appreciate that.
I really like what you said before. It just came back in my head. You wouldn't let what they think it is interfere with what you know it is. That's a really strong statement, because it's the difference between ignorance and education, isn't it? So you spend the time getting to know what it's really all about, whereas they have a belief system based on very little fact. So really, really powerful statement. I'm actually going to write that one down. I really like it. It's a good motivating statement. So awesome stuff. So you've had the success, and now you're beginning to experience what you would call lifestyle. And you guys moved. You decided that the weather's better in northern New South Wales.
Yeah.
And took a trip up there. What? How does that impact the family?
I think it's the best thing that we could have done for our family. Like, especially for my younger children, they love it up here. They're really thriving up here. But it was just something we've always wanted to do, and there were so many reasons why we couldn't previously. Financial reasons. I had my business in Adelaide, and there was no way that I could start all over again. 7-year business. I couldn't just pick it up and move it because all my clientele were in Adelaide. I would have to start from scratch all over again and go back to in the beginning. And so that was a bit scary. While my husband could have got a transfer with his job, he'd be starting again too. So it would be a massive backstep if we had moved previously. So when we started the online business, being online, you can literally work from anywhere. So it wasn't going to hinder our business. And in fact, it actually grew once we moved. Like, while we were in the middle of moving, we hit the newest rank in, the next rank up in our business. While I was at home, like, I was literally in an empty house with mattresses on the floor and board games for the kids. We didn't even have a TV yet because everything was still coming up from Adelaide. And my husband was cleaning out the old house and doing the gardens and things like that. And yeah, we managed to hit the next rank in our business. So that was pretty powerful. It was something that we wouldn't have experienced in any other kind of industry. So that was pretty cool.
It was very cool. I remember very clearly. Also, you and Mick, out of necessity, started doing something that became a standard. You know, whilst the business existed online, a lot of people were driving it face to face. But because you couldn't get out, because you had a large family, busy businesses, busy jobs, you started using a little tool that wasn't very well known then, called Zoom, which is where we're recording this now. And everyone says, no, 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 you're crazy. This is, you got to meet people. It's also face to face. You got to build relationships. But you guys very, you know, out of necessity, you found another way of doing it. And I think that's where it's accelerated. And now, you know, with everything that's happened in the last few years, especially in 2020 with COVID, people have now found that's a necessity, and you're already here.
Yeah, I know. It was pretty amazing actually when we had all that chaos in 2020. Nothing really changed for us. Everything kind of stayed the same. So it was partially just, you know, difficulty getting out. After I had my fifth baby, we didn't have the nanny anymore. So I had to do everything with my children around me. And so using Zoom really made that possible, but also being a global business. We can't restrict ourselves in a global business by doing everything face to face. You've got to have different ways of being able to connect with people. And like I can't imagine what it was like in the 80s trying to do a business like this. Like, look what we've got available to us. If we don't use it, then we're just holding ourselves back. So we started doing a lot of connecting with people online, whether that be new people or people that we were working with. And it's really skyrocketed our business. So, yeah.
And in fact, you now embraced the thing that people are doing now. I was going to say the younger generation, but that makes me sound old.
That's right, I feel old too.
Which is the whole social media area, the Instagrams, the Facebook, to the point where you now educated yourself into that space to leverage yourself and leverage your team. And you're now teaching some basic social media stuff as well. You've done several courses yourself, and now you're teaching people how to take advantage of that.
Yeah, so, you know, with businesses like this, I feel like it appeals to so many different types of people, all different ages, all different backgrounds. And, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a mum at home with kids, or you're a tradie, or you're like yourself, a business coach, or like, you know, it doesn't matter what you do. This is available to you. So being able to get onto a platform like Instagram, I'm able to reach a lot more people than I would just personally going out to networking events or just meeting up with people and, you know, kids parties and meeting other parents and things like that, where I would normally be. It just really opens up the network. And if you do it in the right way, it can be very appealing to people as well. It's just about doing it the right way. That's what I'm trying to educate people, so that it is seen as a positive rather than scaring people off.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what scares me off, and I spoke to Mike about that last week. We talk about the Instagrammers, you know, stand there, take a photo, swing the leg out, look really cool, get the rented Lambo and the jet. I don't see any of that on yours at all. No. It's actually on that. You've taken another hobby and turned it into yet another business. Let's add another business. And you've now got your, what's it called? It's not called a master's in yoga. What's it called?
Yoga teacher. I've done yoga teacher training, yeah.
Cool. And you're now onlining that as well, and you're using that as a source of not only connecting with people, but it's also a business for you and a hobby.
Yeah, something that I love. Yeah, it's something I always wanted to do. Always wanted to go deeper into the background of yoga, learning the philosophy of yoga and understanding the Sanskrit and everything that goes with that. And so, of course, you know, during COVID, I was like, why not? So I just did it. And then I had people coming up to me asking me to teach them. So, again, I just started teaching them. And then I seen this as a way that I could spread this further by doing it online.
So I'm sitting here chatting, and people are sitting there that are watching now going, and she's doing this and she's doing this, and they're beginning to count. And the question is now, how the heck does she do it in terms of adding so many things to the same plate? Because we haven't given, as far as I know, in the last 6 years, I don't believe anyone's given you any more time.
No.
I'm pretty sure
nice.
It's 24 hours in a day. So how do you squeeze stuff in? How do you juggle all this? Because to me, you don't look stressed out or anything. In fact, quite the opposite. Actually, you look less stressed out than what you did 5 or 6 years ago. Yet
Oh, yeah.
you've got more on your plate. That doesn't make sense. You know, give us, what's the secret sauce here?
Well, with my online business, we've got leverage there. So it's not just up to me to do the whole business. It's an amalgamation of everybody involved doing their bit. So that frees up some time. And then, you know, my children, you know, now that they're all at school, I've got that time during the day to work on other things. And it's just time management. It's just being able to know when you've got to get certain chores done in the house, and making time for my husband, making time for my children. So I tend to keep my weekends free. I can now. I couldn't before. So now I've got my weekends free where I can do stuff with the family. My husband and I can go and have a coffee during the week if we want to without children, so we can have a little date day, those sorts of things. So we're still filling our cups, like we're still able to take care of ourselves, because that's really important too. If you're not feeling fulfilled in what you're doing, then you need to make a change. And I didn't have any of this available to me before, and now that I do have that freedom to go and do those little things on my own. Even just being able to practice yoga without any interruptions, that's huge. I used to have to go and try and find time at 5 o'clock in the morning if I wanted to do something like that. Or I would be going at night once the kids are in bed, try and find a class somewhere that I could go to at night time. And it was just really hard trying to find those classes at the times that I needed them. And now it's like once the kids go to school, I can get in an hour of yoga, and then I can start my day. I do a lot of meditation, so just to center myself and get my mindset right. And then after that, it's just scheduling things in, making sure that you've allowed enough time for everything.
Are you the default diary kind of person? What people might not know what a default diary is, a diary that where your whole week is mapped out in little time blocks. Do you do that, or do you just largely go with the flow as well and being very flexible?
I am a bit more flexible than that now. I used to have everything mapped out. I used to have a whiteboard on my wall, and it had all of the calls and everything that I had to do at certain times. And now I've leveraged myself a lot more. And now I do have my Apple Watch, and so I do put things into my calendar so it pops up and tells me what I've got coming up so I don't forget things. So certain things I need to remember if I've got a call on or something like that, then I have that locked in there. And I have a class of yoga that I teach on Wednesdays, and then kids music lessons and kids tennis lessons and all those sorts of things are all in there. But they're pretty much stuff that happens every week, so I can I just remember those anyway. And then other things that pop up randomly, I make sure that they're in the calendar so I don't forget them. But yeah, I try and allow space. To me, I found that's really what centered me and helped me with managing tasks and making sure that I'm 100% in everything that I'm doing. If I've got my calendar too full, I'm not giving enough of myself to make sure that I'm doing enough. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be, stress and being flustered and things like that. Whereas when there's a bit of space in your life, you don't have that.
It's interesting. I was going to say, I just had a blank. No, I had a complete blank. Oh, flexibility versus being traditional. One of the things that I seem to notice is, when you talk about spending time with me, your date time, some people often get hung up on the fact that it has to be date night.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't it be date day?
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're finding those cracks in your schedule where you just improvise with it. And it's like, well, let's do it now. It doesn't have to be a Friday night. We can do Wednesday for lunch.
And then I don't have to organise a babysitter, so.
There's that. And you know how challenging that is. Speaking of challenges, you've had challenges in life, and I don't want to dwell on the specifics. How do you recover? How do you recharge? I don't want to call from a bad time or a bad day, or just one of those times where it hasn't gone your way and things aren't the way you planned it to be, and it's all falling apart around you. How do you recover? Because one of the things that, let me butt in here. One of the things in terms of what I've noticed about your skill set or your rock stardom, your strength is your ability to recover within a couple of days, even when things are falling apart. How do you do it?
Oh, you've seen me do it within 30 seconds.
you're, you're extremely resilient, very unusual skill. Where does that come from and how do you do it?
I have had a lot of challenges in my life and it's built me as a person. I use all of my past experiences. I don't see myself as being a victim or anything like that. I use that and I thank those experiences for growing me into the person that I am today. And, yeah, I still have those moments. I still have those moments of frustration when I'm just like, why is this happening? But I'm able to sit with it, just accept that it is, and then move on. And I think that's where a lot of it comes from, is just accepting it for what it is. And also accepting people for who they are. That's been a big lesson for me, is I am where I'm at mentally because of the experiences that I've had. Not everyone has had those kinds of experiences to have that level of understanding. And so I've got to have that level of understanding for them not having those experiences, and sort of just accept that they're at where they're at. And then that can avoid confrontation. It can avoid having any, negative vibes and that sort of thing, because I can just kind of accept them for who they are and where they're at, and understand that, they're at where they're at for a reason, and I'm at where I'm at for a reason. And we might not see eye to eye, and that's fine. And just kind of move on from it. So it's hard at times. There are days where you just sit there going, why? But I'm getting better at it.
Well, we're all getting better. I think it was Limp Bizkit that sung a song. I can't remember the name of the track, but there's a sentence in there that says, life is a lesson, you get it when you're through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the very last day on this planet is when you probably get it.
Yeah.
That's when you're the most learned, unless your mind is not intact at that point. Who do you become under that pressure? For the moment where you hit the wall, before you go, all right, let's go back to what I know works. Who do you become? Do you go Suki Lala? Do you need to go for a run? Do you take a yoga session? Do you blow up and tell everyone they're a bunch of whatevers? What happens do you implode or explode?
No, I need to vent. So I find someone who I can vent to, get it off my chest, and then go do a yoga session, or take the dog for a walk on the beach. Something like that, just to clear my head. And then I'm usually okay with it. I'll think about it afterwards and think about how I could have responded better, or, like different situations. But initially I just need to vent about it to somebody, and usually it's my husband. So, yeah, or you.
Well, yeah. The difference between Mick and I is that I'm emotionally removed from the situation. I'm not in a pressure cooker. So, but I've noticed you do that. You do a vent, and then you disappear for a day or two. Sort of, you're very quiet, and then you come back and go, okay, I'm doing this and this and this and this and this, and I'm going, hang on a minute, I spoke to you a couple of days ago. Things weren't so good. It sounded like it was all over. So that's a good skill to have, because that way you don't carry the baggage either. You're actually clearing the baggage before it becomes a festering ball of hurt in the middle of your guts, which is what most people experience. When you have those experiences, emotions, it becomes a little ball of a little knot in your stomach, and if you don't clear it out, it stays there for a long time, and sometimes it manifests into disease.
Yes, I was just thinking that.
Which is not a good thing. Hang on, I got a couple more. I haven't really followed the questions I wanted to ask a whole bunch, because I thought it's not really relevant. Here's the question. You kind of answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway for the benefit of others that might be watching. And this is a male-female question, and it's not because I am a misogynistic old whatever. But us blokes, we have frail egos. Let's be honest about it. We also genetic wired to protect and provide for the family. And all of a sudden, in your family, you're stepping up as I don't want to use the word power woman, but we're getting into that territory. How did Mick feel that you're you're stepping up to an equal role to him in terms of, you know, providing for the family and that sort of thing. How does he react? And in families where that might be seen different, how would women of your caliber that wants to step up and do something, how would they deal with that situation? Because often a husband or partner might feel threatened by that.
Yeah, I have seen that a lot with where people feel threatened about their partner starting to take on a bigger role financially. But no, Mick was, I think he just wanted to do it with me. I think he could just see the potential in what we were doing, and was like, well, if you can do this on your own, then imagine what we could do together. And so he wanted to help me. And he's always been very supportive of everything I wanted to do. All the businesses I've wanted to start. That sounds bad, but all of them. Yeah, he's always supported me in those things. So I think it's more, he sees it more as something we can do together.
I could just see what happens over the dining table. That, honey, I got an idea. It's like,
It's like, oh no.
this time. So no, it's really, really good stuff. So these days your lifestyle is pretty, even for a busy one, it's pretty relaxed. What is lifestyle? You know, we hear about it. You know, many Instagram pages are called lifestyle something or other. What is lifestyle? Is it different to everybody? Is it an illusion or delusion? You know, what do you think lifestyle is all about?
I think it's just about having that flexibility. To me, that's what it is. It's just having balance. You're never going to have total balance. There's always going to be something that takes up more than something else. But it's just being able to find space. I find that lifestyle to me is when I have a little bit of freedom to sit on my own and have a shower by myself and, you know, go and have a coffee with Nick when I want to, you know, have that time alone together. Or if we want to go and have a weekend away, we can go and do that. Or, you know, an activity we want to go and do with the kids, we can go and do that, go on a holiday if we choose to without too much restriction. You know, at the moment that's not really possible, but, you know, we're getting there. But yeah, I think it's just having freedom of choice, being able to choose what you do.
That makes sense. You won't believe how, you probably heard the same thing, the amount of times I've heard mums of young kids say just that, I just want to have a shower by myself. And you know,
Yeah.
Unless you've had kids, you don't realize what that means. It doesn't sound like such a big deal, but it really can be. Awesome stuff. So for people like that are listening to this, that are thinking of doing something that might not have the support either at home or from their friends, and they're nervous about it or they're scared, what's the gold nugget you can give them? What would that be?
I would rather give it a go and see what's possible than not do it and sit there forever wondering what if. You know, you're better off just giving it a go. And if you're going to do something, really give it a go. Like actually put in 100% and see what can happen. If you just like do a little bit here and there, the only reason why any of my businesses have been successful is because I've given it my all. I've put the time in. I've put in the time to learning what I need to learn. I've become a master at what I do in everything that I do. You know, taking that time to upskill myself so that I know that it will be worth the time investment or the financial investment or whatever I put into it. I'll make sure that it's worthwhile because I'm taking ownership of it and I'm committed to it.
So you don't believe in toe dipping?
No.
Just jump in.
Yeah. Just give it everything. Yeah.
And that really, the difference between toe dipping and jumping in is the difference between trying and commitment, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So getting all in. I don't have anything. We've been on. I'm sitting here trying to make sure we don't go too long. We've been going for about 45 odd minutes. I don't have anything else I want to add. Do you have anything you want to add? Otherwise, I'll close out the call.
No, I'm good.
Okay, guys. For anyone that's watching, please, feel free to share this channel if you want to talk to Dani. Just leave a message on the channel, or there's an email link as well. If you want to know more about what she's doing and how she helps people, you can do that. And if you know somebody that needs to hear this information, please share, the Experience More channel as well. Dani, it's been a blast talking to you as always. We don't often get the chance. I love your story. I love your passion. I love your family. Though I've only met a few of you guys. You're rarely at the same spot at the same time these days.
No, that's right.
And I enjoy working for you. So I really thank you for your time this morning, and thank you for everything you've done for our community and our team. We really appreciate it, and I enjoy your friendship as well.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Cheers.